What was your personal involvement in the Australian-Turkish Friendship Memorial Sculpture Project?
I was privileged to be a co-convener with Elizabeth Grigg, whose grandfather is an Anzac, was an Anzac at Gallipoli, and she's also principal of Texture Architects, of which I'm also a director, and it's been basically organising many people and their ideas, such that it coalesces into the most beautiful form that Matthew Harding has created in friendship between Australia and Turkey in the story, and for the story of the Anzacs and the Turkish defenders at Gallipoli for the commemoration of Anzac for the centenary year, which is this year in 2015.
As an architect, how would you describe the memorial and the design in terms of meeting the stated aims of education, commemoration, friendship and cultural connection?
Well, we're delighted about that. We spoke and consulted with many groups of people in the community, which have had connections to Gallipoli and the Anzacs, as well as to the Australian-Turkish community. And we also consulted with and briefed the four artists, the extraordinary artists who have provided the most amazing projects in response to the project brief. But having considered all of them with the panel, the selected artist was Matthew Harding and his work, which was quite exceptional. And what it does in terms of form is it makes a place, and in the location that we're very privileged to be, that have had approval to place the memorial, the Friendship Memorial, is adjacent and near to the Shrine of Remembrance, which is our most sacred building in Victoria, as well as to be next to and near to Nurse Cavell's memorial, who is also an extraordinary person. So it's a great honour to be allowed to have that location, and with the trees and with the space that it creates between itself, the trees, and where the people are walking along Birdwood Avenue and running and walking, it just creates a most wonderful place for reflection, for commemoration, and it's very peaceful, and it's a wonderful piece of architecture, if I may say. As a piece of sculpture, it's a beautiful piece of sculpture.
Lastly, as the project co-convener, could you talk about why the memorial is important for Victoria?
It's terribly important for Victoria and for Australia. It's in friendship with Turkey, and that friendship. I mean, Australia is since Federation is a relatively young country, but we have a very old, ancient, and deep culture that continues to this day and into the future. But within that, since Federation, Australia is, being a young country, has numerous stories that it needs to tell people in Australia into the future. And specifically with the memorial, the Friendship Memorial, was about telling the story of Gallipoli, the Anzacs, the Australians who went there, and the Turkish defenders who were defending their homeland and having perceived that the invasion of Gallipoli being an existential threat to the Anatolian homeland. And so two peoples who've never really come across each other before became, through the experience, uh, um, begrudging respect and then on the 24th of May, when they buried their dead together, they developed respect and friendship, and so there were items of food and other gifts, if you like, were exchanged, but most of all, during the fighting and during the entire campaign there, both sides did not lose their humanity in the most awful of circumstances. So it was quite an extraordinary war, and in Australia's for Australia, this is one of many stories that Australia has of that period during the First World War, and it needs to be told, and we've been able to take that in friendship that happened on the battlefield and transpose it to the heart of, or the centre of Melbourne. And it's been with the great support of the Victorian RSL and its President, Major General David McLaughlin, and the Anzac Centenary Board, which is a federal organisation, with Sir Angus Houston now who was the chair then, and with the help of the Australian federal government and the Victorian state governments. So it's been a terrific community project with the support of the Australian and Victorian governments, as well as the support of the Turkish government in terms of their input for making an equal contribution to the project in terms of funding that is equivalent to the Australian government.
Could you talk a little bit about the symbolism of the sculpture?
Yes, I mean, it's terribly important. Matthew Harding's design encapsulates the words of comfort of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk to the Anzac mothers and to the other combatants who came ashore at Gallipoli, to say that, you know, your sons, having fallen on our soil, have now become our sons, and I think that Matthew has taken those forms as a metaphor to create a form with his words in terms of the wreath. So there is an act of laying the wreath, which also could be construed as being part of a crescent, but also the very fine stainless steel is a metaphor for the intertwined lying in the soil with the Australians and the Turks, and that they have now become brothers, basically, and lying in peace, and the horizontal plains and I guess the jagged terrain that exists at Gallipoli in most parts is represented through stones that are on the horizontal plane. And then Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's words are carved in Turkish and in English, as you know, to the Anzac mothers, as well as Charles Bean's most prophetic, most amazing encapsulation of his view about Gallipoli. And then we have a series of as if in front of the wreath are the lone pine cone, the seeds of friendship, and its equivalent, the casuarina, and as if the needles of the pine cone have fallen onto the earth, and etched into those are words, letters home from Australians and Turks written during the battles, and they are the most poignant, the most extraordinary words that they have expressed as to what they felt about each other which is incredibly complementary, even though they were fighting each other, yet had evolved and had developed such levels of respect and a level of intimacy to be able to say about their adversary or their enemy at the time that they are a good, clean fighter, and that and I think both sides have expressed that. So it's an extraordinary layer upon layer of meaning in that memorial, in the Friendship Memorial, that we had written into the project brief, into the design brief, but Matthew Harding has interpreted and has created a most beautiful work of art to be able to make sure that future generations of young Australians are able to be part of that. There are potentially other ways of resolving conflict, and ultimately that it is a peace memorial, and that peace is a far better option. Peace and friendship is a far better option than war. So thank you.
Thank you.